Hello, race fans. Welcome to another episode of Short Track Guys Podcast, brought to you by ShortTrackExclusives.com. I'm your host, Thomas Battis, alongside one other short track guy in the studio tonight, Ted Baber of Ted Baber Video Productions in Pensacola, Florida, Fire Flag Speedway, and you might find him a little bit on the short tracks in the Southeast. Ted, what's going on, guy?
We're just going to have another wonderful evening and talking about short track racing. I'm here to, it's just going to be a party.
Yeah, we've got, Jim's not here. He is absent. He is in the shop working hard, getting ready for his next race coming up here shortly. We will update what's going on. I think Ted got some information behind the scenes that we'll get to, and we've got some exciting news that happened here in this past weekend in Pensacola at Fire Flag Speedway. We're going to hold off on that until the end, but let's talk about what's going on in that Sportsman stable.
Well, from what I understand, the new engine and the combination with the new VDL carburetor sounds evil. He's ready to rock and roll. I know he's ready to get back out on the track. It is a long time between races, and he's ready to go.
Yeah, you can't hold a horse back that long. You know, he's a bull of a driver, and you know he will want it the way he wants it, and yeah, that's why he's not here tonight. He's focusing on getting that thing straight and getting it up to the front and competing for another championship, which he would actually repeat this year.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he's in fourth place right now, and having not had the best of luck in the first two races, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, it's it's going to be another season at Fire Flag Speedway with all the classes, and we had a stellar weekend, but I almost want to let the horse out of the gate too. I want to get talking about it, but we got some other things that we have to catch up on, and we do apologize. We've had some unforeseen circumstances that happened last week, and partially my fault, but we're going to catch up on as much as we can and get up caught to speed, so to speak. And I want to give a big shout out, first of all, going back to Jonathan Davenport at Eldora, and Tony Stewart, the owner of Eldora Speedway, putting up $1 million for a dirt late model race. And Jonathan Davenport comes in there and just whoops some, you know what I'm saying?
Some backside.
$1 million. And then a couple of nights, maybe the next night or a couple of nights, he went to the XR and ran a dirt series and ran $20,000.
Not a bad weekend.
Yeah. Or $1,002,022. And then he goes and he wins the XR race and practiced another $20,000. I mean, what's $20,000 compared to $1 million you won just a few nights ago? But and then they went and ran another XR race, and Chris Ferguson actually picks up the $40,000. So those dirt late models, man, they travel around the country, and even Ken Schrader would test to this, and Kenny Wallace. They go all over the country, and they race these dirt late model races. They're running 60, 70 races a year. Yep. But it seems like these dirt late model races are putting up a lot of money.
They are putting up a ton of cash right now. And you've got to, if you can possibly get out there and run it and run successfully, you can put some money in the bank.
Yeah, for sure. I would do it if I had, that kind of talent. But
and the backup,
just have somewhat of a modest talent talking about it. So after that, we're going to talk about Casey Johnson. And we've mentioned this guy before in the ARCA Midwest Tour, up there at Slinger and Dells, and they run Madison. They run there's another track in Wisconsin, the Milwaukee Mile in West Allis, Wisconsin, with William Sawalich.
Very good.
Finishing second. Griffin McGrath, John DeAngelis, as we talked about a lot time from Wisconsin up in that area. And the fast qualifier finishing fifth with Johnny Sauter. So you throw some of those names over a blanket and just go, wow.
Yeah. We got a couple other names coming up we've heard from before, and we're going to be hearing from them again. I can't wait to get to that one as well.
Yeah, that's, we can go from race to race, which we're going to do, onto the Spears SRL Southwest Tour out in Kern County with Jace Hansen. I believe it is his first Spears SRL Southwest Tour win. With $10,000 in the Firecracker 100 over Buddy Shepard and Dustin Ash. And that was no feat. He had to really overcome some positions and really kind of use the front bumper to get these guys out of the way to make the win. And it happened to be on the last lap. So congratulations to you, dude.
And made for an exciting race, no doubt about that. You got to love that.
Yeah, that's just part of some of the stuff that we've got. Southern Super Series coming to Tri-County. Man. Where the Southern Super Series points leader Stephen Nassy heads to Hudson, North Carolina for the King Parts 200 with another cat that we're going to be talking about here just shortly. Is
some guy named Bubba.
Yeah, some guy named Bubba Pollard.
I've heard of him before.
Never.
A lot of people heard about him this last weekend, and ooh, they're surprised.
Yeah, not only this weekend, but you're going to continue to hear about him in the future. I'm going to the King Parts 200 up there at Tri-County. With Stephen Nassy in the Southern Super Series, he's on a roll now with momentum, and like the anticipation that we have coming up in this episode, we're trying to hold our reins back on this horse we're on, but. Man, that's going to be a show this weekend at Kern County.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how that's going to turn out, because both of those guys are going to be hard charging trying to get. I'm not exactly sure what the numbers are between them as far as points spread goes, but it's going to be something to watch.
Yeah, I think they've got a little something against each other too, maybe, or not against each other. I wouldn't say, but I mean they've got a history of Rubbins racing kind of deal.
A little rivalry going on there.
Yeah.
They've been known to get together.
Yeah, I love that Southern Super Series, and we got Super Series pretty much building. I think I want to say and go out on a limb and saying that Southern Super Series is kind of spread.
Right.
I know there's probably other series and super late models and pro late models that have been in existence because of this, but I think it's only getting bigger because of the Southern Super Series, and Ted's got one here that it's getting even bigger.
Yeah, the Grand National Super Series they ran in Franklin County. And a name we haven't heard from too much here recently, Jeremy Mayfield swept the weekend, winning both races. And I'm glad to see that, because I know that he's had some situations in the past with NASCAR that didn't turn out as positive as I'm sure he would like to. But at least at this particular venue, he held forth quite wonderfully. It was nice to see him back on top. And they run 2 feature races. He won both of those. And as far as the rundown goes for the the follow-ons, A.J. Hendrickson was the second place, and Kevin Cromer, this is in the first feature, came in third. And then we have Mark Jones, Jason Shue, Mike Smith, Tyler Ashley, Cody Dennison, Dusty Silvers, Larry Wilcox, Eric Barber, and Joe Wilder finishing out the field. And from what I'm understanding, this class, the series is growing, because prior to this, I don't think the car count was quite as large, but it's getting bigger, and we can't wait to see how that's going to turn out. It's primarily South North Carolina and Virginia area, but I think they're also spreading to different tracks as well, so it's good to see that. Now, in the second race, I think the first 3 is fairly familiar. You heard these numbers before. Mayfield, Hendrickson, and Cromer again. But then things got shaken up a little bit beyond that, because Josh Phillips was 4th. Lauren Butler came in 5th. Mark Jones, and then Mike Smith, Dusty Silvers, Cody Dennison, Eric Barber, Joe Wilder, and Larry Wilcox rounded out the finishing order there. Good racing, and it wasn't easy for Mayfield. Apparently there was a lot of traffic involved and kept things pretty shook up, and nobody knew what was going to happen until the very end, and it was just so much fun to watch.
Right, and the How Hard Charger Award went to Josh Phillips there in that race, so or the event. Man, I can't imagine. And we've watched Jeremy Mayfield. In fact, I've even raced with him on iRacing before. At the super speedways, and it's so cool to see guys like that. And people have often asked me, was it really him? Was it really him? Well, you can't fake an account like that with iRacing. They do a background check, and it is. Tony Kanaan. There's been so many that've been on iRacing, and Jeremy Mayfield has been one of them. At the he always takes 12. Right. And I ran the 12 here locally. Now I'm the 112, and sometimes he takes the 112. So I've kind of got a little rivalry going on there with Jeremy Mayfield, although he doesn't know me from Adam's House Cat. But still, it's good to see him back in a race car and him doing well.
Yep.
And then taking a sweep on this Grand National Super Series. We're going to certainly keep an eye out for this, because this is something. It could be a north-south shootout type thing, where you got different series with supers and pros. And then coming together and they start butting heads, and man, you got some talent.
We just never know. We are anticipating getting some representation from Bob Schacht and company as far as trying to get exactly what all the details are, how the what kind of cars they are and everything else. It is just, this episode is just going to be so packed, we just could not force anything else in, but we are going to handle that, I promise you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're going to stay on top of it and give you as much insight on some of the bigger races, from sprint cars on dirt to, sprint cars on asphalt, late models, pro late models, even, if we have to go to bandoleros,
who knows?
And we've extending, from one part of the coast to another, and we've already gone across the border, which we're closely going to do now.
Yeah.
Is going to Burlington, Washington, at a track that I want everybody to kind of take a look at. This was
bucket list.
Yeah, this is a Dirt Cup tune-up.
Yeah, I love that name.
Yeah, the Dirt Cup tune-up, and it actually originated back in 1954 on Labor Day, and there were 14 investors, I believe, that put in at least $100 to buy 17 acres of land and cleared stumps, trees, and an egg-shaped oval cut out in the middle. May not qualify as a racetrack, but those came out to be within a $100 purchase of the land. Was excited about the future. I mean, you can imagine in 1954 buying land like that and cutting it out. Now, this wasn't like a planned kind of thing. They just went and dug it out.
Just to see what happened.
Yeah, they had 5 or 6 or maybe 7 earlier pioneers that went into this. It's a 3/10 oval of clay using the acreage available to taking clay from the property itself.
That's tiny.
Yeah.
Talk about a bull ring. Oh my God.
And at the time, the track was roughed out of the terrain. So it was kind of like they were working on this thing, finding that the landscape at the south end of the racetrack was 12 feet higher than the north end.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Dirt was taken and relocated to the other side to compensate.
Have an elevation change in your racetrack.
You would think if they'd have kept going, but somebody was smart enough to realize that. And at the time, they thought they were building an oval track shaped like all others. And it wasn't until later that someone flew over the racetrack in an airplane and took an aerial photo.
Oops.
And they realized it was an egg shape. So they weren't even close. But over a period of time, it became known as Skagit Speedway, and it's in Burlington, Washington. And we have gone from Canada to South Florida at 417. We've gone through Texas. We've gone through California up to Washington, all the way up into the very, very, very far west coast up there in Canada. But if anybody is out there interested in some sort of a speedway history, go watch some of those videos of some of the dirt track races that they've got at Skagit Speedway in Burlington, Washington. It doesn't get any better than that. And we really kind of focus on the southeast, and we do
a primary location that we're working, right? But it's everywhere. And man, I just reviewed some of the action from up there. Oh my Lord, the crossovers and the
slide jobs. Oh yeah, yeah. It's the same. And they're 410. They got 360 and they got 410 sprint. I mean, it's kind of like going to Southern. I don't think 3/8 and 3/10 you're going to notice a whole big difference. But these guys come out and they roll on the track and they get it done.
And it happens in a hurry too on a 3/10 mile too, because you just constantly on the brakes, on the gas, on the wheel, on the berm, everything in between, trying to stay out front. It's not easy. These guys are working it every second.
Right. And I'm reading that noise wasn't the problem really in the early days of Skagit. The problem was dust.
Right.
And the investors got back into their pockets in 1958 to build a well. 2 years later, the lights were added, and Skagit became racing every Friday night under the lights.
Wow.
And that was in 1958, so that was a pretty big deal. And you can imagine those sprint cars back in 1958. Ooh. These guys, they probably had dirt all over their face, the goggles and the hard helmets and everything back in those days, I'm sure.
The raccoon look.
Yeah, exactly.
Pull them the goggles off and all you see your eyeballs.
Yeah, exactly. So, if anybody wants to check out some racing history, just go to Skagit Speedway, look it up and watch some of those videos wherever you get your sources. And today they've got 10,000 seat venue, which is breathtaking.
It is impressive. The racing there is really impressive, I got to tell you.
Yeah, and they have fans from April to September. Racing happens nearly every Saturday night with the addition of special events such as the Dirt Cup, which we're talking about, the Summer Nationals, the Monster Slam, and World of Outlaws. So we talk about it in our area, but I just wanted to bring another side of it from a different
venue.
It's probably 3,500 miles from where we're talking.
Right.
But they're doing the same thing here that they would do at Southern, which is 20 minutes from our location. So I want to put a lot of stuff out there at Skagit Speedway, Skagit Speedway in Burlington, Washington. Check some of those videos out. It's just the same, and give some of those guys kudos. I think I have a list of some of the guys that are actually out there for the 50th annual Jim Raper Memorial Dirt Cup. Tyler Courtney.
Right.
Corey Gray and Justin Sanders. Those are just a few of the names that are leading points right now in the 410 sprints.
And they were swapping places back and forth, up and down, and getting in and out of traffic. That was another thing, because I noticed that there was a lot of traffic out there that they had to deal with, but they managed to get through it, put the slide job on each other, and they were bouncing off the berm, going to the bottom, going to the top, and having a blast.
Yeah, so they're the slide jobs, and what did you say the other one was?
The berm shots.
Yeah, the burn shots. Yeah, this is so cool. So Skagit Speedway in Burlington, Washington. Just kind of check that out and watch some of those videos, and you'll know what we're talking about. If you've seen a sprint car race here locally at Southern Raceway in Milton, which is literally 30 minutes from our location, it's no different. And I wanted to bring them inside like we do the SRL series. With the supers out there in Kern County and California with Derek Thorne and Jeremy Doss and Jesse Love and all those guys. We want to try to welcome the love to the East Coast, and we try to do that. And right now I think it's an opportunity to kind of pick up on that and bring it to light. And I think we've done that before in Canada and some up in Alaska. Didn't we do an episode with a race in Alaska?
I believe we did.
I think we did too.
That's pushing the cushion there.
Yeah, in Alaska over there, their season probably lasts about 3 weeks.
Right. By the time the sun comes up, sun goes down, you're done.
You got to run 3 weeks and your season's over.
You put a lot of racing in a very little bit of time.
Yeah, I'm just being kind of crazy about that. But I mean, you get what I'm saying. In Alaska, it's like if you picture Alaska, you just think of, like ice and snow and just
tundra and
the wind and igloos and all that kind of stuff. You don't think of, short track racing or any kind of racing really, except maybe snowmobiles and all that kind of stuff on the snow and ice and everything.
Ice racing, motorcycle ice racing, things like that. That can get pretty. They have spiked and they have non-spiked tires on those ice race bikes, which got to be a little bit painful if you get caught by one of those. But man.
Yeah, I can't imagine getting ready to go to a Thursday, Saturday, Friday night show, and, bundling kids up with, blankets and parkas or whatever you want to call them. Yeah. And you go out to the racetrack and watch these snowmobiles and ice trucks and whatever racing they got. But we've actually talked about some of the dirt track races with late models and modifieds and all that stuff. They do it during a season, which is just kind of unusual to us.
Well, it's not. I'm sure it's not unusual to them because they've probably been doing it for years as well.
Well, check it out. Skagit Speedway in Burlington, Washington. Check out that racetrack and learn a little bit more of the history about some of these short tracks. And we're trying to keep short tracks alive. And speaking of something we don't want to let go, and we had an experience coming up this past weekend that we had anticipated since the announcement was a couple of months ago.
Right.
With the SRX, the Superstar Experience Racing Series coming to Pensacola at Five Flag Speedway.
It was everything that you expected it to be and so much more.
Correct.
I promise you. That was so much fun to watch. Yes, it was hot.
Yes.
Hot. It doesn't even begin to describe. The track was an absolute grease ball. Everybody had to try to adjust for it, had to compensate for fluid loss and everything else that was going on. But it was so much fun to watch. And the aforementioned Bubba Pollard, first race, clinic. I'm here to tell you, he absolutely showed everybody how to get around that track. It was so much fun to watch that. The second heat race, clinic. He comes from last to sixth place. And then the feature, wow, if it hadn't been for a low left rear tire, I think he would have absolutely won that race. But it was just most unfortunate that it happened we were watching it, and all of a sudden he disappears. I'm like, well, where'd he go? And then they come back out on the track, and he's dead last. And we're like, oh, this is bad, but boy, this is going to be fun to watch.
Right. And I did watch the replay on CBS on YouTube. They have it on the YouTube channel with SRX and CBS Sports, which they've had all the races replayed in the feature races in its entirety through the YouTube channel.
Right.
If you weren't happening, to be able to make it, you could watch the replay, but it's just the feature. But we got to experience being on premises because the track is literally 10 minutes from our studio.
Right.
And the anticipation of these drivers that are coming in to put on a show like we've never seen before was just, over the top.
The show started with the condition of the track to begin with. It was absolutely pristine. It was so well put together. Shout out to Shanna Ard for doing such a wonderful job and getting the place fixed up for a national TV audience.
Oh, for sure.
And I got there real early, like about 10 o'clock, and to rub elbows with some of the people that were there, Paul Tracy, Helio Castroneves, TK, Tony Kanaan, and those are the IndyCar guys. Now, let's not leave the NASCAR guys out. Bill Elliott, Bobby Labonte,
Greg
Biffle. I got his autograph, by the way. He was very gracious about that. Michael Waltrip. Good Lord, the quality of people there. It was just outstanding.
Yeah, Marco Andretti, Paul Tracy.
Yep.
Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Yes.
Ryan Newman.
Oh, yeah.
Not excluding Bubba Pollard, one of our heroes here in the local area. He claims the Five Flags is his local track, and I think these guys knew they were coming down to follow and see what he does.
Right.
Because I don't think a lot of them, and we're going to get to the real big story here just because of this.
Right.
I think a lot of them want to find out how to get around this place, with equally prepared cars. And now you can go back to the old IROC series, International Race of Champions, with the same way. Yeah. But they more paid attention to like the mile and a half and the 2 miles. They did the super speedways. They did Daytona. They did Texas. They did Atlanta. I saw the race in Atlanta in 2005, and I promise you it was the best race I have ever seen. And the winner of this one was in that race, and it was the best race I've ever seen in my life.
Well, this one, I have seen a lot of races out there in 20 plus years. This one was pretty darn exciting. It would make your top five because these guys everybody was just slip sliding and, fussing about how greasy everything was. But you were all on the same track. You were all in relatively equally compared, prepared cars. So it was all out there, you had to deal with what you had to deal with. And that was about how it came down. But to watch Bubba come from absolutely the tail end and just consistently, one after another, click them off, pass them, bump a little bit of bumping, a little bit of grinding, a little bit of maneuvering, but nothing like when he reached, he got past the best that NASCAR and Indy Racing League had to offer. Then he came to Newman. That's when things got extremely exciting because I was in turns 1 and 2, and Bubba was inside Newman, just grinding. He wasn't really bumping him. He wasn't hitting him. Newman knew he was there, and he knew that something was coming. And when he was coming to the checkered flag, Newman found out he may be tough to pass, but he's not impossible. And Bubba let him know because I saw the sparks.
Well, that's what they say rubbing's racing, though.
And he rubbed him.
Nobody wrecked anybody.
Nope.
The only incident that happened really was, one, Bubba's flat tire.
Right.
Which the hole was, if you see Matt Yoakum, when they pulled the tire off after they replaced it, the hole was on the inside of that left rear.
I'm trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, me too. And Bubba had to start in the back, and
he was very methodical.
Yeah,
and he just kept picking them off one by one. And Jim, being probably the biggest Bubba fan in the world, he was just hollering, trying to help him get back up here. And I just got to think, if he could have got past Newman a little bit sooner, maybe 5 or 10 laps to go, it might have ended up differently.
Maybe. We'll never
know.
Never know that. But the big story, with Bubba, and I do have to make a correction that you might have heard on the replay through CBS that Bubba has one in Maine. Bubba has one in Washington. He has one in California. He has one in Canada.
Right.
But he has not won the Snowball Derby. And,
No.
and Alan Beswick, great guy with Connor Daly doing the commentating, did a great job. But that was one of the things that stood out to me is that they said he won the Snowball Derby, and he has not. That's the only late model race in the country that is on Bubba's shoulders that he's got to knock off. It's like trying to win your first Stanley Cup, your Super Bowl, or your NBA championship. That is one of the races that Bubba's trying to get off his back.
I know it's got to be a monkey on his back and it's got a wear on him, but he hasn't done that yet. But it's coming. I promise you it's coming.
Yeah. So with Bubba winning the first heat race and then having trouble and having to work his way to the back and then battling it out, through the field
Right.
With Labonte and then Kanan, obviously, and then Castroneves, and then Newman. The outcome could not have been a more monumental, as Tim Bryant would say.
That's absolutely, because you have the iconic picture.
the iconic picture of Elio Castroneves climbing the fence. Elio Spider-Man Castroneves, which he's done at Indy. Well, he's a 4-time Indy 500 champion, and to have him in our backyard at our racetrack and watch him up and close and seeing what he did, and then finding out the story as how this all unfolded,
Absolutely,
even puts more icing on the cake.
Just amazing. He was even there. He wasn't really supposed to be there, and he was actually, somebody actually asked him, "What are you doing here?" because they didn't expect him there, but he was there, and it was just a situation that worked out as best it could possibly work out. He had a car that he had run before, was set up for him, and it happened to be one of the backup cars that hadn't been taken yet. So he got an opportunity to race, and boy, did he take advantage of it.
Yeah. He he had made the commitment back early in the spring to run a full NTT IndyCar series.
Right.
He's 47 years old, from Brazil, 4-time Indy 500 champion. And he had found a hole in his schedule where he could make it.
Right.
And Donald Hawk, the CEO of SRX, and Ashley, the director of operations, got together when he decided that he was going to board a commercial plane and fly to Pensacola.
He bought his own ticket.
Yeah, he bought his own ticket and flew to Pensacola commercially.
Right.
And got to the racetrack, and when he got on the plane, he called Ashley and said, "What time am I supposed to be at the racetrack?" And she said, "Elio, you're not even in the lineup. You're not supposed to be here." And he goes, "Well, I'm on the plane." So she went to work with Donald. They text with Matt, all coordinators for the SRX series,
Right.
and asked if we had a car for Elio because obviously he's on his way.
Yeah, he's coming. Whether you're ready or not.
Yeah, it happened to be that his car was in the paddock as a backup, but it was the same car that he rode last year in all 6 races. It was his full-time SRX car last year.
Right.
And so when he got there, that's when Ted was saying, everybody said, "What are you doing here?" And he thought it was funny because he wasn't supposed to be there. And I can almost see the jaws drop like, oh boy,
what?
we're in trouble.
Yeah, we got something to do. And Tim also had to put out a little bit of effort to get his car numbered, and I didn't realize when I was sitting there watching him putting the number on the car that was Castroneves' car. Yeah, I was like, well, I've got to get a shot of this, and he's like, I want to put a number on the car. What that's all about? Got a shot of that. I'm like, then I find out. I'm like, oh, holy cow!
Well, there's no way you're going to sit there and decline the fact that Elio Castroneves took it out of his own pocket to get on a plane because he was going to come and he found a way to get here and a hole in his schedule that he could race. And the deal was, at the beginning, when he made that sign to run the full IndyCar series, that if you were to come and run the SRX series, and if you win one of those, I would help you find a ride in NASCAR. And so this is what happened.
Yep.
And that this makes this story so extraordinary. And to have Elio win the race, not even supposed to be here, and he climbs the fence,
Right.
Is just like Tim said, it's absolutely monumental for this area in our economy.
And what is so cool about it, it's not just any race that he gets to run. He gets to run Daytona.
And I'm sure they're going to find a way to have that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to be the July race, obviously, but it'll be possibly trying to get into the 500
Right.
In 2023.
He will have to race his way in.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Qualifying, I mean, one way or the other.
But wow, what an event they put on. Kudos to Tim Bryant and your staff out there. You guys, man, my hat's off to you. And I'm even going to take the hat off and I'm going to dig a hole and bury it just for you guys because you absolutely did a phenomenal job getting that track ready and having CBS come in and SRX do their deal like you did in the past with Hooters coming in and taking the track and running it like their own. It went off flawlessly. I'm sure you had some little issues here and there with, all of a sudden Castro Neves is coming. I got to find some decals and, I got to find a vinyl company to put the numbers on there. Now it wasn't a total wrap, I don't believe.
No,
I'm not 100% sure, but I doubt. I think the car was ready, but if they had numbers to put on it, they would have had them. But because it was Elio, they had to put his name and the number and all the other stuff on it. But it was just. But kudos to that whole crew, and man, the crowd braved the heat.
Oh, wow.
Unbelievably hot. And another thing I want to say is thank you so much for having the arm stamp to get us out in the parking lot, because I knew that it was going to be an issue for people that were, having a good time and didn't experience, because there's a lot of people came from out of town.
Right, a whole lot. And they just chased that series around, and there was a bunch of RVs and a bunch of, license plates and tags I hadn't seen before, states I've seen before, but just a whole bunch. And I think one of the coolest things was while I was down there in the paddock, as they would call it, I got to shake Tony Kanaan's hand. That is an experience I'll never forget.
He's a cool guy, too.
I mean, I asked him, did you draw the short straw and get the pink car? And he said, I like pink. I'm like, I said, as long as it's fast, that's all that matters.
He's from Brazil, too, isn't he?
Yes.
He and Elio are both from Brazil, and they're really good friends. And what a cool group of guys just to go out and be stars.
Yes, absolutely.
Experience stars and have a great time and not really...
not be stuck up about it. I mean,
I can't say much about Paul Tracy, though. I think Paul Tracy, we talked about this before we went on, I think he loves being in that spotlight.
Yep.
I think he's been in the booth. He's, with the IndyCar events, he's been in the broadcast booth, and now he's gotten this opportunity, and he gets roughed up. I know he and Haley Deegan had it out last year. I want to say it was Nashville, but I'm not sure because I think that's where she was racing at Nashville, and they kind of roughed it up a little bit, and they got a little, verbal conflict, at the end. But I mean, it is what it is kind of thing. But I think Paul Tracy plays that part, not intentionally. I don't think it's a script, but Paul Tracy's one of those guys that kind of fits in the middle of the front end and the back end of that spectrum.
Well, I know that Ryan Newman and Bubba had they discussed things after it's all over with in a calm and professional fashion. So I don't think either one of them were upset with the other, but it's just that's racing, and Bubba was trying to do everything he could to win that race, and it came down to the last lap. You're going to do what you got to do to at least improve your position. If you know you can't win it, just do whatever you can to get up there just a little bit further. But man, that was an experience. I really hope we can get them back.
Yeah, I really hope so too. And we're looking at this year's schedule. They are going back to Stafford, and the Stafford, I believe, is their opening race last year with Doug Coby taking the win over those superstars.
Right.
And then you've got Bubba Pollard finishing second. I believe they're going to South Boston this weekend on Saturday night, also on CBS, and Peyton Sellers, ironically, will be in the 26 car against the same lineup that we had here at Five Flags. So I can't wait. And I'm hoping, as I can attest to Jim saying here, right here in the studio, if he were here, I hope they extend it and make it maybe 10 or 12 races.
Right.
All short tracks, and then multiple drivers in the mix.
Right. Because it'd be nice to have, I don't know how you could work out like an overall non-superstar champion like the NASCAR or the other IRL series, but if you could figure that out, give somebody a second shot Everybody knows who Bubba Pollard is now because they watched him on national TV just carve his way through the field, almost to the front.
Yeah, if they didn't know Bubba Pollard then, they do now.
Absolutely.
And that's another thing that's huge with that Bubba Pollard stable. With being super late model, pro late model, he's known all over the country in that short track realm. But being put in that spot like Luke Venhouse and Doug Colby and all those guys last year, he just and he did earn it. There was a doubleheader super late model race. He finished first, which I am proud to say. The right front fender from that race and the win on Friday night is right in our studio with his signature on it. And then he actually got in some trouble Saturday night, I think, and finished fourth. But the best average, and he earned it. It wasn't chosen.
No.
He earned it. And we're so proud of Bubba Pollard from Sonoya, Georgia. And he works hard every day. He's got a normal job working with his family at the dirt track in Sonoya. He knows his stuff. And it was great to see a picture of his local crew that comes down, which they call local crew, but I'm sure they're all from different parts. Some of them probably from here. They're all in that party deck. And I think Tim reserved that party deck for the Pollard family and friends. Yeah. And it was great to see his crew in there just being normal guys and rooting his driver on, and him coming off with a second place finish is just, I mean, just an all around cool experience. And I would be on my deathbed before I'd miss that.
Absolutely. And both of us almost were too. Because I haven't been feeling the best. I was not 100% sure I was going to make it, but I'm so happy I did because that's something you have to experience.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was just, it was incredible. So, once again, my hat's off and buried to Tim Bryant and his staff out there at Five Flags. Shannon Harper, doing the decorations and everything and making it look nice and brand new.
It was beautiful.
The only thing I would suggest maybe is a little bit more lighting.
Yep.
I would just put a little bit more, maybe, I know they had to put some of the electrical lines underneath the track to get, visual aspect of it. But I think in order to make it more, not that it wouldn't be, but even more greater experience was a little bit more lighting in the corners, or some of the dull spots around there. But all in all, I don't want to tarnish the whole thing. But the Saturday night deal, it was stellar, and I'm so proud that they were able to pull this off, and I can't wait to see it next year.
I know that everybody was absolutely relieved when the sun finally went down.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. It was a hot one.
Yes, it was. We had a generator and 3 fans and a little pool for the kids.
Yeah. Well, that arm stamp that they put on you allowed you to go back in the parking lot, sit in your car, and turn it on when off-track festivities stopped, on-track festivities stopped. It allowed you to go in the car and cool off.
Right.
And then when you heard all the cars coming back in, then you could get back out and go, and you could walk in and out, which was a big help. If you get stuck in the stands and can't go anywhere, I mean, the shade, it was still 100 degrees in the shade. So
it was.
But I hope
overall, in spite of the weather, and I know it was not comfortable, but it was so much fun to watch that.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I can't wait for them to come back, and I really, really hope they do, and we'll just wait to see the schedule, and we've got 5 more races, and this weekend coming up at South Boston and Virginia, the same lineup with Peyton Sellers. Good luck, Peyton Sellers, in that 26 car. Maybe Bubba can throw you a little good luck, and kudos to that, and see if you can go to the front and win that one.
Pull that one off. Yep.
Well.
Well, I don't believe that we managed to pack it all in there, but we did.
Yeah, I didn't believe we'd be able to get most of it, and I think we got even a little bit more than most. So, congratulations to all the winners. Everybody is driving Port City. Everybody is driving a Super Pro, Dirt, Sprint, late model,
go-kart,
everything, go-kart. Everybody that's won this weekend and holding the trophy up. Kudos to you.
Yep.
We all know from a standpoint how hard it is to get in the shop and then, bleed and sweat and cry a little bit and then get better and then finally win. And when it takes over,
get you to from Busted Knuckle University. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the way it all plays out. So, Ted.
Yeah.
I'll be at Jim not here. He's, doing that busted knuckles right in the shop,
Yes,
getting his sportsman car ready for the next race. And, It's always a pleasure to get and talk short track racing. And
that's right.
This was a special episode for me because the SRX came here and we had so much to talk about that and then the story behind it.
Right.
The people that we have mentioned and a lot of the superstars that came in. You don't get to see that much.
Yeah.
This is the 7th race they've had.
Right.
And we are one of the 7 with these superstars that come in.
Yikes.
Normally you'd have the Snowball Derby and you have Chase Elliott or you have Kyle Busch or you have David Reagan or David Stremme or some of these guys come in from the Cup Series or, Truck Series, John Hunter Nemechek and Derek Kraus, all those guys. But you don't have 13 cars that are lined up, albeit one is a superstar anyway.
Right.
But the other 12 having such pedigree with the wins that they've had and the success in their career.
Championships and everything else.
It's mind-boggling.
It is. Absolutely great.
So it was. I'm glad we could go on and on and on. I'm still so pumped about it.
Too. I'm just juiced over that.
Yeah, I walked in and they were going around and around and around, and I'm thinking, okay, there goes Walter, there goes Labonte, there goes Andretti, there goes Tracy.
Now, not to to slight any other class, but the Outlaws put on a heck of a show too, as best they could with Timothy Watson's absolutely putting on a clinic for them too.
Yeah, that he's from Panama City. I know that, and he's putting a spanking on those boys in that Outlaw series. But yeah, it was a great show too. And I think I texted my brother one time early, like these guys are going to have some trouble because it's so hot out here. These cars are going to burn up.
Yeah, a lot of them. I think they started 26, I believe, and finished 13. Because the heat got to some of them, mechanical failures got to some of them. It was rough.
Well, I could see that coming, from us just walking around, let alone the fluids trying to keep everything cool in the car.
I did have a GoPro in one of the cars. I leaned in to get it, and I burned my arm. And it was not even a heated surface. It was the roll bar, for crying out loud. I got smoked on that.
Yeah, welcome to that Florida weather, I guess everybody would say. If you don't like the weather, just wait 15 minutes, it'll change. Well, Saturday it did not.
No, it did not. Not at all.
If it didn't change, it changed for the worse. It got hotter. So kudos to all the fans that came out.
Yes,
we loved seeing all that. I was hoping for
in droves.
Yeah. Yeah, and the heat, some of them I know that had to get carted off and because of the heat stroke and everything, but they got taken care of.
Yeah,
Tim Bryant was very adamant about that, and being notable about watching people and how they were, and then having his staff out there, taking care of the people, and it's just a stellar time.
It was announced on regular occasions: stay hydrated, get your fluids, get something to drink, keep after it.
Yeah. So, Ted, as always, it's so cool to talk short track racing, especially this episode. This one's going to go down in one of my favorites. Jim, hey, keep busting those knuckles. We'll look forward to seeing you and talking to you next Wednesday night, episode 53. It will be. And thanks to everybody for listening, and we will keep you up to date on everything that's going on, and we'll try to give you as much as we can.
That is it. There is one final item that I think we cannot forget before we get out of here. That is a
Let's Go Brandon. Good night, everybody. Thanks for listening.